Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CDL podcast channel. In this episode today, we've got some reactions to the final week of regular season qualifying matches for major ones. It was a pretty crazy one. We came down to about a million different scenarios for tiebreakers coming into the final day. And obviously, we don't have a match or a tournament this coming weekend, so we don't have predictions to make necessarily. We're going to save those for next week ahead of the major. We're going to be listing our top 10 and top 5 players at each position and getting into some news, talking about the matches of the weekend. But before we get into that, Kyle, how you doing today?
It's an eventful week here. I don't know, with all the changing weather, it's like we have like a big warm up and then a big freeze again and stuff. So it's caused some like issues with like water and stuff here. Like a lot of water like just melts really quick and it's just been kind of some of it's gotten like leaked into the basement and stuff. So it's been a lot of you know unfortunate circumstances there, and then we're having also some like contractor work at the house too, so it's like stuff's getting torn up and hammering, uh you know construction noises going on all day and stuff. So it's kind of just like everything's just like strewn about and torn about right now. But you know it was I was able to sit down and watch some of the matches this weekend, so you know, had some normalcy injected into the week there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm ready to get into this.
Yeah, I mean, right now, actually, as we're talking, there's a big snowstorm going on outside my house. We're supposed to get like potentially, I think like 6 inches of snow in my area, but some places north of me are supposed to get over a foot of snow tonight. So uh,
Oh,
that's not going to be fun. But before we get into everything, if you guys enjoy this one, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube and follow on the audio platforms. Those will be listed in the description if you're watching on YouTube. And then follow the channel's Twitter as well. That'll be in the description. We've got a fun one today. I'm excited to get into it. Before we kind of dive into some of the matches, going to talk about some news. First thing being, I mean, Kyle, it was pretty confusing. The tiebreakers for the major, honestly, they might not have been that confusing, but there was no like public knowledge or statement as to what the tiebreakers really were. I feel like they probably wouldn't have been that confusing if they had just told us or had them listed somewhere. But like going into the final day, half the players and teams like didn't know what their chances and potential seeds they could get because it was like super confusing because they just weren't making any of the knowledge public.
yeah, I felt it was kind of you know, for me personally, just watching it was confusing. It was like it came down to like if a team lost, it came down to how many maps they played, and uh I don't know. It was just it was confusing, like you said, and it didn't help that none of it was really published. Because I'm
Yeah.
sure some of the Twitter accounts out there, like Easy Mac, and people that are really plugged into like the map by map stats and results and stuff, they would have been able to put out the scenarios, and it's like because sometimes it's fun, like in traditional sports, when you get like a you get like a big matrix of like, okay, if who wins and how many maps, then this result will happen and these seeds will happen. But it was like we were kind of just like winging it, shooting from the hip, so to speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just like it was a little bit hard to follow along. And then once matches wrapped up yesterday, um, we finally did get the bracket published and stuff, so that made it a little bit easier. But while everything was going on, it was just a little bit hard to understand.
Yeah, I mean, it was super hard to understand. The one disappointing thing was going into that Sunday, OpTic was 2-2 and Breach were 2-2, and it almost seemed like they would be playing for like the guaranteed winners bracket spot, and then the other team would drop down into that tiebreaker, and who knows, maybe they would drop down because like every team was 2-3, like half the league. I think it was like 6 or 7 teams finished 2-3, and then all of a sudden they said right before the match, actually no, OpTic is already locked into winners and Breach need to win a match. So I was like, oh, the match is a little less exciting now, since obviously OpTic had already clinched winner, so it wasn't like a win and you're in situation. Speaking of OpTic though, Shotzi breaks GAs versus the Ultra. Obviously we've already established wasn't intentional on his part, but still pretty bad that he had it on for not one but 2 maps, meaning the F8 stabilizer, which was obviously GA'd a while back. It was pretty crazy during the matches. Obviously, unfortunate it happened. One thing I will say, people are really complaining. I get the frustration. I also get that if it was the flip side and Ultra were using it against OpTic, Twitter would have been going crazy and the OpTic fans would have been going crazy. But I'm going to be honest with you, Kyle. It didn't matter if they had FA8 on or not. OpTic absolutely world star Toronto in this series. It wasn't going to matter. And then they took it off in map 3, and the Ultra players put it on, and they still just world starred them. Unfortunate it happened and shouldn't happen. I don't know how Shotzi possibly put it on or had it on for 2 maps, but let's be honest, it didn't really have an effect on the outcome of the series. OpTic was world star in them regardless.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't like that cop out per se. I mean, I totally get it, and I agree that OpTic just had the better, gameplay that day. But like you said, if the roles were reversed and Ultra was like let's say Kleenex, like because it wasn't the entire team, it was just one.
Yeah.
Like let's say like one player on Ultra was using F8 or some G8 attachment, and it was clear that OpTic was just down that day as well and stuff. You know, and would everybody be still sitting there and being like, oh well, it's just it doesn't really matter because OpTic just sucked that day, or Ultra was just by far the superior team with or without the F8. I don't, yeah, I was just like, this is good drama. This is a good storyline to talk about. I wasn't really like, up in arms about it. Yeah, so it was just kind of interesting that it happened to go for 2 straight maps, and from what I from what I've seen and stuff, it's a pretty noticeable thing that's on the on attached to the end of the barrel as well. Um,
Oh yeah. Big rectangle
so
at the end of the barrel.
yeah, exactly. So I don't know. And Shotzi seems like the last person that would intentionally stir the pot to make drama like that as
Well, and
well.
let's
So
let's be honest, if somebody was purposely breaking GAs, they wouldn't do it in the 4th match of the regular season for Major 1. It'd be on a lot bigger scale. If they really wanted to break GAs for an advantage, they wouldn't break them here and screw over uh, really the rest of the league if things were to break down. I mean, it was obviously an accident. Unfortunate. Almost thankful it happened in like a blowout match, so it didn't become like a big controversy where like he got a couple crazy kills and like it was the difference or something. It's almost good because we don't have to keep talking about it because it ended up in happening in such a blowout. But yeah, wild times. People are breaking GAs. Thankfully, it wasn't some malicious intent thing, or we'd be having a whole crazy discussion in the pro community. It lead to some good drama though. Um, Another piece of news to talk about: ranked play is live. Obviously, this past weekend I played a bunch with my buddies. I'm pretty happy overall. I'll say it's good that we have an SR system. Some things obviously need to be fixed. First of all, I swear the Gavutu play rate is insane. All I play is that map, like, and I hate it. I hate that map so much. Um, Overall, Elo system seems pretty good. They're working on some tweaks, which are definitely needed. I will say because, like, yesterday when I was playing, every win I was getting, no matter if I was top of my team, bottom of my team, middle, like frying, struggling, whatever, I would get like 5 or 7 SR for a win. And then if I lost, I'd get -50 or -40. Like no matter how I was doing individually, how bad we lost, how close the game was, no matter what, I lose 50 SR, gain 7. Then the other day I was losing like 10 and gaining 50 for every win. It's like when you're in that cycle of only gaining 7 and losing 40 to 50, you have to win like 7 games to counter 1 loss. And like, obviously that's not how it should be. So there's a little bit of issues with the elo, but I'm sure that'll get patched out. One other thing I tweeted about, and I had a bunch of people reply to me, agree with me, is I swear on like Gavitu and sometimes Berlin. And then a lot of people in my comments were saying in every map it happens to them, but in ranked play, I just like lose aim assist randomly. Like I'll be like shooting at somebody, or like I'll never like when I'm in the boat on Gavitu, it always happens. Just lose aim assist. So that's something that I think they need to address. But overall, I'm pretty hyped with the ranked system. I had a lot of fun playing it.
yeah, I mean, it definitely looks looks entertaining, and it's good that there's a SR system to this as well, just to keep people I guess playing with their similar skill rank, and that it's transparent. And I think that there's accounts online that are like dissecting what exactly the elo uh values are that contribute to what SR you are, or what like rank you are in the game. um I watched a little bit of it, watched some streamers play. Um, I don't know, it was entertaining. I just wish that the map pool was larger and that, we got to
100%.
play some that, like you were saying, like Gavudu came up a lot. Maybe we could get some, and I feel like, people really wanna just play hardpoint, like, that's pretty much, like, what a lot of people wanna they just wanna play, like, Respawn, and they wanna play hardpoint mostly. Um, so, maybe if there was, like, a tilt towards that instead of, like, playing Control or S&D.
Yeah. I mean,
Espe Yeah, so
I love playing S&D when I'm playing with like my 3 friends and we're playing as a full team. S&D is like the most fun to me, but at the same time, like solo queuing S&D is like the most stressful and annoying thing to play when like especially if you can't comm with your teammates or anything. Obviously, like communication S&D is the biggest thing. It's like the worst thing to play solo queuing, but super fun to play as a squad. Although I can get why they don't want to split the game modes because like nobody would ever search and control.
Mhm.
Uh, so I kind of get why they want everybody to play like a balanced, but yeah, I wish there was a way to fix play rate and maybe make control like maybe split it like 40% search, 40% hardpoint, 20% control because they say they're going for like a 33.3, like one third of the time you play each game mode. But I promise you, I played so much Desert Siege and Gavitu, the 2 worst maps ever. So much. But um, another thing happening in the game, team camos. I don't think they're technically like released. Like I didn't see a section where you could buy them, but like the camos are in the game and visible. Um, I have like kind of a split opinion on them. Obviously, the big news was that the OpTic camo came out called the Texas Optics, which is pretty funny, and people are having fun with that in the timeline. Like, how do they screw that up for their biggest team? But like if these weren't CDL camos, the camos themselves actually like look pretty cool, but for what they are, they're terrible because they don't have the team's logo anywhere on them. Like if I was somebody who knew nothing about the CDL and I saw like I thought like the ultra camo itself looked like really cool on the gun, but like if I just saw that on somebody's gun, I would have no clue um like that's associated with some pro league or like associated with a team. I just think, oh, it's a cool like purple, blue, pink camo. Uh so like I actually do agree with some of the people saying they look cool because like actually like visually some of them look all right, but they're terrible for what they are because they have no logos anywhere. They're all generic, all the same. Um we just need to let like somebody from the organizations or like for OpTic, I'm sure like Hecz would design it. We need to either let somebody from the organizations or let them hire somebody. To like contract to make their camo and get some cool custom camos, just like with the in-game jerseys, just like with out-of-game jerseys, we need to get some more customization. But pretty disappointed with the camos because if you weren't a CDL fan, you'd have no idea that it was a CDL camo.
yeah, I don't know. When you think that, the in-game store is gonna be, like, microtransacting for each individual camo as well, like, you'll get a team pack with the camo and the skin and stuff, and then you'll get, like, maybe a sticker and, like, the, calling card and, all that jazz for, like, $10 or something. I think that's a total, if it's just, like, the same camo except the colors are just adjusted and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, it's just really just rinse and repeat, and it's dry. Whereas, if you had, let's say, like, I don't wanna use OpTic because obviously they would always get the most transactions probably, but, like, let's say you had like a let's just say Paris Legion or something, like, had the craziest, graphic design for their camo or something, and it was just by far and away the most cool, and that would get them some, you know that would boost their microtransaction revenue or whatever way more than it normally would. I think that would be really cool, like you were saying, if you had the ability to individually design your own, and it would really show, like, if you're investing in your graphic design or your, just the small areas of your team like that. So,
Yeah,
um, kind of disappointed that, it's probably just going to be the same, rinse and repeat color scheme and stuff like that. So, yeah, I would
and
say overall it was more negative than positive.
well, and honestly, like it's not like having the camo in the store is going to make like a ton of new fans. I mean, it could bring in a couple here and there, but like even if there was the camo that said Paris Legion on it, obviously they don't have much popularity. But like if you're a French COD player over there in France and you see like you could have Paris Legion, like oh wait, my city has a team that might lead you to like look them up or put that camo on or think about how many people out there. I mean, OpTic is the biggest organization in COD, but on a broader scale, Faze is by far the biggest organization that's in the CDL. Like it obviously says Atlanta Faze when you actually like look into the camo, but like there's probably people that are fans of Nick Mercs or other members of Faze that like the sniping and the quick scoping back in the day, or they like watching some of the Faze Warzone guys, and they have no idea there's even a competitive team at all. And if they saw like a Faze logo on the gun, they'd be like, "Wait, I love Faze, I'll buy that." And that might get them into the CDL. Like if it was more obvious that these were CDL team camos, besides the fact that they're in a section that says CDL team camos and they say the team's name technically like when you're hovering over the camo, but you can't tell at all from the actual design. Um, Speaking of Faze, though, we can probably dive right into our reactions for this weekend. Start with them as the only 5-0 team. We talked about potentially covering Challengers Elite, but I didn't have too much of a chance to keep up with Challengers, being so busy keeping up with all this and then life as well. I haven't had too much time to really keep up with Challengers Elite. The one thing I know, though, is uh, I want to give a shout out to the veteran squad in NA as well as in EU. The old Heretic squad with Real on the team, bunch of veterans killing it. The best team in Europe, as well as in NA with General, Kismet, Brezzy, and Havoc. A bunch of vets, and everybody always says the vets can't play in challengers. It's always the young guns that should get called up. Well, there are two veteran teams absolutely dominating the competition. That makes that General, Brezzy, Havoc, and Kismet team in NA now has won 4 tournaments in a row. They won the Challengers Elite. Havoc looks like the best player in the game after this last Elite. He was absolutely dominating in the finals. So want to give a shout out to those two teams, a bunch of veteran teams putting in work because we always hear how veterans can't get it done. So I like to give them a shout out when they get it done down in Challengers.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, you know, potential roster moves are not far on the horizon.
No, probably
So
after Major One, we'll see a few.
yeah, it's kind of priming the pump for, will we see one or more of these, well performing, quote unquote amateur players get poached and brought up to a CDL team, or will it
Yeah,
be? Yeah, so
how about Brezzy over to the Paris Legion with how bad they're playing? He's a French born player. It wouldn't be the worst thing for them to look at. Try to get some homegrown talent, maybe make them popular over there. I mean, it's not like they can get any worse with a roster move. Like they're 0
right.
5. Make a move, sign a French player. They should have done with Hydra, and I'll do it with Brezzy. Uh, that's all we got for Challengers Elite, though, because we haven't had too much time, like I said, to really dive into that. So we'll get into our reactions from this past weekend. We're kind of going to go down in order of like 5-0 teams down to 4-1 teams to 3-2 teams, and then the giant cluster of 2-3 teams, and then down to our bottom teams. Uh, Obviously, there's one 5-0 team, one undefeated team, and that is Atlanta Faze. I don't think anybody is shocked that if there's one undefeated team, they're the team that we find here. Um, I guess, do you have anything to nitpick on them so far? We obviously can't point to a loss. I guess, I mean, for me, it's the shaky play of Simp early on in the year, but with how shaky he's looked, his stats are looking pretty good now, and he's really played well lately. Uh, I guess if I were to nitpick something, it'd be maybe Simp and Arcitys having slightly. I mean, they're still both laying out, especially over the last 3 matches. Uh, but they're maybe below what we're used to seeing. But on the other hand, while those two have been a little down, Abezy is absolutely frying, and Cellium is arguably the best player in the game. And it seems like Simp and Arcitys are coming around. So I don't really have too much to nitpick on them because they look like a fantastic search team. They look really good in hardpoint. Um, I guess maybe the one thing I'll say is they don't look as dominant in hardpoint and control as they did last year. So maybe that's a weakness if you're going to find a way to poke a hole in them and maybe say somebody else could take them out in the major. But I mean, don't know how they can't be listed as your favorite going into the major.
Right, for sure. My one thing is like they haven't necessarily played like the other best teams yet. I mean, they did
Yep.
play
Yeah.
Thieves in this past in the qualifiers and stuff, but other than that, they played Paris, which was a walkover pretty much.
Yeah, 3-2
Um,
though. That was like their one
yeah,
close
yeah,
match.
right. Yeah, I mean, but on paper, you would look at it being like, "Oh man, that looks like a walkover." Then they played
Yeah,
Boston, and then, um,
Minnesota, right?
yeah, they played Minnesota and
Thieves.
Subliners.
Yeah, yeah,
In
Subliners
the
this last week.
yeah, so I mean, they're playing a mix of teams. Like like we would probably say Thieves are a top tier game, a top tier team right now as well, just based on record alone and results. And then but then they play Paris and New York, which are like probably the two worst teams in the game right now. Um,
Mhm.
so I don't know. You would wait to maybe wait to see them play like Ravens, OpTic, Surge. I don't know. Uh, other teams that are up there. But then again, we only have 5 matches to give us records and stuff, so it's like
Yeah.
we deal with what we have.
Yeah, and it's tough to fault them for beating maybe teams that aren't top because that's the schedule they were given, but at the same time, it is definitely a talking point. Um, I like that point, and I also think to kind of build onto yours since we have to find a way that they have a weakness is I will say going into Major 1 in Cold War, they felt like the absolute dominant force and were, like, not gonna be stopped unless something crazy happened. And you can, say you disagree with me, I wanna know your thoughts on it, but I feel like I'm not, like, in Cold War, I was like, in Major 1, Faze are winning this, and I'm gonna be absolutely shocked if they don't. Now, coming into this event, I'm still saying, Faze are the favorite. They're the team, like, if I was asked to absolutely had to pick one team, I'm probably picking Faze, but I feel like Ravens are kind of a dark horse with how good they've looked. I feel like OpTic heating up, they're maybe a dark horse. You can never count a team like Ultra out. Thieves are looking really good at 4-1, and they look like the best hardpoint team in the game. Surge, I know they're kind of on a little cold streak here at 0-2, but they looked really good early on. They even beat Faze at the kickoff. Like, I feel like, I don't know, you know what I mean? I think Faze are a lot less like shoe in to be the winner in this event because they haven't been as dominant as we saw them last year.
Yeah, I mean that's a like you said, that's a fair point. I also think maybe it goes to having like a non-traditional game, like as far as like spawns and
Yeah, it's definitely
it,
harder to consistently
it's
dominate.
it seems like some of the especially like some of the control maps are just like you know might as well just fast forward to round 5. um Although we did see some attacking wins on Gavutu,
Oh God,
so
don't
it's
even get me
not.
started with that stupid map.
Yeah, but I mean, like, so I don't know. I just it kind of gets back to like the map pool for me as well. It's like it's such a closed up pool of maps and stuff. Maybe if we can expand like especially the hard point and the S&D pools and stuff, then we could see some like strategy from other teams. But it seems like you're kind of backing yourself into a corner. Um, like odds are you're gonna play, one of the 4 maps. You know what I mean? Like, um, the vetoes just don't seem to, really make too much, strategy. It's like you just auto ban stuff. Um, so I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm talking myself in a circle here, but point being is that I don't think Phase are really like, you know, underperforming by any means, but I do see a world where like it is a little bit harder to say that like yeah, Faze are for sure 100% the favorites to win this. Like you were saying, I definitely um would probably throw some consideration over to Thieves, Ravens, some of those other teams as well, even maybe even some of the 2 and 3 teams, to be quite honest.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Speaking of Ravens and those other teams, couple 4-1 teams we got to talk about. My Ravens have looked really good. They kind of had their way with Surge. The Surge really dominated the search and destroy, but other than that, in the respawns, the Ravens had their way with them. You think they're a top 3 team right now?
I mean, based on pure record, I would say yes.
Yeah,
I
there's
think
more to it than record though.
yeah, for sure. Even even if we were doing like a straight up power rank or something, I would say like yeah, I would probably have to respectfully put them in the top 3.
Yeah, I mean, I feel
Um,
like the only 3 teams you can make an argument for right now are Faze, obviously. Thieves is the other 4-1 team. And then, a little while ago you would have said Surge, but now they're lost 2 in a row. London dominated them. Maybe OpTic because they've looked really hot, but
yeah.
London are right in that 3-4 range, I think, right now. Although
Yeah,
I'm nervous. All right, sorry if you guys hear a weird audio crash there in the podcast. We just had a little software crash in the middle of recording, but um, we're gonna pick it back up. Kyle was talking about Ravens when we had a little crash, so hopefully this doesn't sound too weird in the recording. But we're just gonna jump right back into things.
yeah, I was saying, as far as Ravens go, like, you wouldn't wanna see a team have such a disparity between their online and LAN performances, which leads me to, I would like to be, innocent until proven guilty in terms of, like, buying into how they might perform on LAN. Um, so, yeah, I would say that they are definitely a top 3 team at this time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see how you could really argue against it. And if you do argue against it, you're like putting them at like 4 or something. Like it's not like you're dropping them way below by any means. It'll certainly be interesting to see how they perform on land, though. It's going to be hard to get a real solid feeling on them unless like we see them absolutely bottom out and get like double first rounder or something, or if we see them make a potential run to top 4, we'll obviously have them very solidified. The other 4-1 team we've got LA Thieves. Their one loss obviously coming to Faze where they got 3-1. Other than that, they're 4-1. They take out Paris this weekend as we expected, and they take out Ultra, which is a lot more of an impressive win because I think both of us would agree, despite the fact that Ultra are 2-3, we still consider them a pretty darn good team. They're definitely not an easy win by any means. What do you think? Are they exceeding expectations at this point, LA Thieves? I feel like they're about where I expect them to be, maybe a little better. I expect them to be a top 6 team, though, a team that has potential to win events. Maybe I didn't expect it to happen this quickly. Maybe I thought it would take a little more time to gel, but I feel like they're around where I expected them to be because I expected them to be a dominant hardpoint team. And if they could figure out the other game modes, they'd find themselves in a position to contend. And that's pretty much where they are.
Yeah, I would kinda offer a contrasting opinion. I would say that they are exceeding, expectations at this point because there was a lot of narrative going into the season about, are they gonna be flipping Kenny and Draza in roles? Is it really gonna work? People were kinda just like, is the online gonna affect them? Octane, famously had really 2 horrendous years online in terms of getting results. So it's like, was
Hmm.
the online qualification matches gonna, just chalk his vibes? People were questioning if how Envoy was gonna gel into the team as well. So I was maybe not expecting them to have at least a 4-1 record at this point. Um, Maybe sitting more middle of the pack, but they're definitely looking like top third in terms of just like obviously the record is like would put them tied for second right now. Um, but I would say for sure, in my mind, they're exceeding expectations.
Yeah, and I hope they continue because they're a team that I feel like can give a run to any of the top teams, no matter if FaZe falls out as being the top team, which I don't see happening. If we have new teams coming towards the top, Thieves are always a team that's going to be able to give people a run for their money because of how strong they're always going to be in hardpoint and how much slaying ability they have. I mean, a guy like Octane's always going to be towards the top in AR KDs. But since a little bit of a struggle in the start, Kenny's really picked it up. Envoy has looked like some flashes he's shown in matches. He looks like a top sub with some of the crazy flashes he's been showing. Obviously, Draws has been pretty consistent all year around a 1. And honestly, the team is looking pretty good. Uh, I'm still not fully sold on their ability to win this major, potentially because of their search and destroy, but they've started to look improved. So I still think that there's a chance they could do it. But that's the one thing that gives me a little bit of a pause to this team is the fact that their search and destroy at times in this early part of the stage has looked so bad. And obviously, at some point, if you're going to win an event, you're probably going to have to clutch up in a game 5 somewhere. And of these top 3 teams right here in record, FaZe, Ravens, and Thieves, I think I have the least faith in Thieves S&D. but they have a bunch of veteran players, and all of a sudden, if they put it together on LAN, I wouldn't be shocked at all either. So excited to see what they can do this weekend. Really excited to see what all these teams can do, because Ravens and Thieves are a bit both maybe kind of surprise 4-1 teams that we thought could be good, but maybe not this good this fast. So it'll be interesting to see if they can live up to that top 3 record that they have coming into the major. But moving on to our 3-2 teams. First one, we've got the big dogs in the league, the popular team, OpTic, who defeated Ultra in Boston. Huge week for OpTic. They 3-0 Ultra. They 3-1 Boston, losing that map 1 and then running 3 straight. I mean, I say huge week for them because this could have been a season-changing week if they lose 1, lose 2, go down to losers, maybe get knocked out early. You could be talking roster changes. But now they've won 2 in a row. They're on the winner side of the bracket. They kind of get a tough draw because they play, I believe, Surge round 1, and then they have to play the winner of the Faze Boston match. So they're likely playing Faze round 2 if they win round 1. So tough draw for them. But I'm buying a lot of stock in OpTic because I feel like that 0-2 start, I said in the last podcast, I think it could be one of the better things that happens to them, because instead of starting fast like they always do, maybe they get punched in the mouth right away and they realize we've got to grind. We're hearing stories of Dashy at the Hecz quarters, very late nights working on different nade spots and different strats and all kinds of things in search and destroy. And clearly it's been paying off because they looked a lot better in search this week. He looked a lot better in search this week. I'm buying some pretty big stock into OpTic. I feel like, not saying they're like my favorite to win the major or anything, but I feel like, as opposed to 2 weeks ago, I feel pretty confident that this team has what it takes to make a top 4, maybe top 3 run this weekend.
Yeah, I'm making a speculative investment in OpTic stock right now as well. Maybe not. I'm not like pushing all the chips to the center of the table. I think doing that with really any team right now would be kind of foolish, just
Yeah.
based on like the parity and results that we've seen. But the OpTic definitely turned a new leaf. At least in terms of like just dominating Ultra, and then they kind of ran through Boston aside from dropping the opening hardpoint as well. I think
Mhm.
they 3-0 that Gavudu control and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's like,
I
oh
don't.
yeah,
I mean, this isn't a like 100% stat, but I'm pretty sure it's got to be the first 3-0 in the league this year in Gavutu.
yeah. So I mean, it was definitely it was impressive, and I don't, if you're an OpTic fan, I don't see how you could, it's probably the best. It is the best case scenario after starting 0-2 to win the last 3 to find yourself in winners. Obviously, uh, you mentioned that they have a tough draw, yeah, but next time they'll be telling themselves, hey, just don't lose matches, and you'll get a better draw, or you'll have a more favorable draw. So. Um, I don't know. I'm optimistic. I think they definitely have the caliber to, like you said, make a top 4-ish run. Um, maybe if a couple matches go their way, they could find themselves, playing in the grand finals. Who knows?
Yeah, I definitely think that I really, really, really like where this team is at, because unlike most OpTic teams in the past, I see the S&D potential, and we also know they have the talent and respawns. And one thing that's been crazy to me is Shotzi's been playing unbelievable. Dashy's looked very good. Uh, Scump has looked so. I feel like we know, especially when it comes to the big moments, we know Scump is going to get to where he needs to be. But Illy has been like surprisingly looking really good in the slaying department, which is not what we expected for this team. We expected a guy like Shotzi and Dashy, especially, to kind of be the top slayers, but even Scump. But I feel like Illy was probably number 4 in terms of who we expected to be a slayer on this team. But honestly, on like, especially like the bow cages, when Illy has to pull out that 3rd sub, he's looked fantastic. And that their shot calling on a couple of S&D rounds was massive. And that Boston series, in that Tuscan search in that round 11, that was one of the best shot calls I've seen on an OpTic team in a while. It seems like a lot of times they kind of turtle up in their round 11s. On that, they did the old school, I heard Name was talking about on the broadcast, my style S&D, old school, spread the map, make sure every lane's covered so you can't have anybody leak through, get your playmaker to leak through on their side of the map and have them hit the flank. And Shotzi hit the flank, killed the bomb planner in that round 11, and they're able to take him out. Some pretty good search and destroy plays that really we haven't seen from OpTic in a while, since, well, maybe really Karma was calling some shots for them. So pretty cool to see. Our other 3-2 team, maybe on the exact opposite trend though, huh? Surge, they completely falter in week 3. They dropped both matches. What do you think? Are they coming back down to earth? Are we worried about them? I feel like I'm a little bit worried because of the fact that, I mean, they are 3-2. They won 2 Game 5 round 11s. So, I mean, even one of those doesn't go their way. They're at 2-3. Both don't go their way. They're 1-4. Like, they were very close to being 1-4. They obviously finished 3-2. So it's a pretty solid stage for them, especially because another team like Ravens that we were talking about, uh, they were probably going to be a slow starter, and obviously they weren't. They were about as fast as you could start at 3-0. Um, I guess I am a little worried though because like Sib has looked like a human the last 2 matches where he was dropping a 1.4 in every series for the first 3, and was looking like an MVP candidate, and he's looked like a human and a normal player where he struggled a little bit in the last 2 series, and it's really dropped the surge down. I mean, accuracy was by far their best player in their 5th match, which is something that can't be happening. Accuracy can't be their best player on the map because that's not what his job is on this team. He's the main AR, the leader. He's not supposed to be the superstar. So I don't know. I'm a little worried about this team. I just don't think it's time to like panic, but uh, I think people might have been a little bit too fast on the hype train.
Yeah, I'm for sure not pulling the plug on them by any means. But I do think it is a kind of a coming back down to earth. They get humbled in 2 straight maps or 2 straight matches, should say. Um, that Mutineers 3-0 really shocked me. Uh, I don't know. I was just like,
Hmm.
I was kind of just left like, yeah, did I really just see that? Like, you always expect. I mean, at least in early days, you always expect Surge to come out heavy in the in the opening hard point and stuff, and they just looked kind of flat, and Mutineers kind of they just capitalized on the opportunity. Um, and then you could argue that the Raven Surge match was like a clash of 2 pretty uh powerful teams, and Ravens just came out on top. Um, but yeah, I mean, um, I don't know. I think that I still have faith that this team will come around. Um, Maybe they won't be a top like 3 team like we might have been, buying like, getting high on their own supply at the beginning of the first 2 weeks and stuff. We were like, "Oh my gosh, surge, surge, surge." Um, but maybe they'll be, I think they might slot better into like the top 6 conversation. Um, but that'll all be hashed out in the coming weeks, obviously. So
Yeah,
yeah,
we're
that's
gonna finally get a good picture of where everybody really stands after a full major on LAN. Uh, but they're an interesting conundrum coming into this major because 2 weeks ago you could have maybe argued they were the favorite going into the major, and now we're wondering if they're going to be able to even potentially get past a round or two because I believe they have OpTic first round. So that's a tough match, uh, tough match for them considering how hot OpTic is right now and how cold they are. It's an interesting meeting. It's maybe the coldest team, obviously not because you got like a team like Paris, but from where they were to where they are now, and then OpTic from where they were to where they are now, they're 2 of the polar opposite teams. Now we're going to jump into our absolutely cluttered 2 and 3 teams. Ultra towards the top of those 2 and 3 teams. Obviously, they fall to OpTic and Thieves this week. I don't know. The question we have here is: are we reassessing our expectations of them going forward? I'm going to be honest. I'm not at all. They lost to OpTic and Thieves. Guess what? OpTic and Thieves are fantastic teams themselves. Uh, my guy Cammy just hasn't looked like himself as much early on. He's been struggling a little bit. Obviously, we know he had COVID and missed the 1 match earlier, so he has a little bit less stats to show for this year. But he's looked a little bit shaky compared to what we're used to compared to MVP Cammy. Kleenex has been very up and down, but we expect that out of him. Insight hasn't been as good as he was last year either. Bance has actually been really good in my opinion. Been almost their best player this year, but I'm not really reassessing my expectations for them going forward. I feel like I still expect them to be a very good team. I still could see them making a big time run at the major this week. It all starts with that first match. They play LA Thieves in the first round, which is a gauntlet. I believe they play LA Thieves at least, which is a gauntlet. If they're able to somehow take down Thieves in that first match, I could see them making a run deep into the tournament. And we know with their composure and everything, they're not going to fold. I still have very high expectations for this team, and I still feel like as long as everything keeps at least going decent for them and Cammy can pick it up, I still expect us to be talking about them as a potential contender to be the world champs towards the end of the year.
Yeah, for sure. I think that these team, Ultra, uh, they lost to three pretty substantial teams.
I mean, yeah, OpTic and Thieves are good teams. They're going to beat
Yeah,
you.
yeah, and then week one they also lost to Surge too, who
Yeah.
we just got done talking about them. They're no
And they were red hot.
slouch. Yeah. So I think the three losses are justified. I mean,
Yeah.
replay those three matches. I think that they could easily flip all to Ultra.
Well, yeah,
And we
and
could be
think about
and
it. With OpTic and Thieves, like their schedule is that tough and a hot surge. That means at some point coming up, they're going to have an easier schedule.
right. So I don't think I'm reassessing my expectations for Ultra by any means. I still think this is a team that's built to make deep LAN runs. We saw it last year. We saw them win the Kickoff Classic, obviously, as well. This team is comfortable on LAN. They have the chemistry and teamwork. So yeah, short answer, no. I'm not gonna say that this is a team that's fallen off and we should chalk them up to be like you know they'll make champs, but they're not gonna do anything. No, I think this team is in it for the long haul.
Yeah, 100%. Kind of on that same coin, reassessing your expectations. Are you reassessing them for Mutineers at all? They were 0-3. They 3-0 surge to go 2-0 on this weekend, get to 2-3. They almost clawed their way back into winners bracket somehow after an 0-3 start. They look a lot better. When you actually look at their individual stats, like Big Wake and Dave Patey have like two of the top KDs in the league. Skies is actually not bad. Vivid's actually their lowest KD, but we know what Vivid brings to the map. If you look at more advanced stats, he's like number one in engagements in like every game mode. So we know he's just bringing that aggression. And really, him dropping that 0.91 and that aggressiveness is what's allowing Big Wake and Dave Patey to have those high KDs. And we all know what Vivid brings to the table. So their numbers and everything on paper look really good. Even in their loss to the Ultra with Hexy, they lost like by seconds in the control and around 11 in the search and by 1 point on a Bocage hardpoint. Like the Mutineers have actually looked not terrible. I still feel like their ceiling is kind of middle of the pack, like 7-8 range, but I'm a little more optimistic on this team after seeing them have a really good weekend.
Yeah, I mean, talk about like parity and results. They obviously they beat Ultra here. Or sorry, they beat Surge, and then they also beat Paris earlier on to
Yeah.
those were their two wins. So it's like they beat one of the best teams and then they beat the worst team. Um, so I'm not sure if what my expectations are for this team. I think I need to see them maybe not even through stage one land, but maybe through stage two to really get like a fair assessment.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are saying, it's like they have three ARs on their team. Like they have Big Wake, Skies, and Dave Patey. And it's like, who's gonna run with Vivid? That was like, that's been one of the narratives and stuff. And like we were saying, like their numbers have been impressive from individual stats.
And you know what makes no sense to me? This team is always playing Bocage. Always. And they're like the team that you would argue has the least sub talent. I mean, I know Skies and Big Wake are very talented players. It's not like they're incapable of running a sub. Big Wake's actually looked pretty darn good, and Skies at times has looked pretty good, darn good with the sub. But they seem like I guess I haven't looked too much into their vetoes because I admittedly haven't been as interested in Florida matches. But I'm assuming most teams are vetoing Gavitu against them because you would think with Big Wake, Skies, and Dave Patey, they'd be pretty darn good at that map because that's obviously a 3 AR map. And if there's a player that can get aggressive, Vivid seems like the perfect sub player to play on that map. So I'm assuming most teams are vetoing them. But why are they playing Bocage so much? I feel like this team has potential. Like I feel like they're a pretty good search team if they can just figure out one of the respawn modes to be a solid team. And like we know they have that pop off talent that they can make a move. But we can move on to your team now. Got the Rocker. They claw back versus LAG. Whether it was a choke job by LAG or a clutch game in that game 4 for Minnesota to claw back in and win that series. I don't know. You think they're getting bailed out too much? Like we have in our notes here, they had OG OpTic choked against them in that first match, and then LAG kind of choked against them. They could very easily be 0-5. It's kind of like shaping up to be what I mentioned in our like preseason, like early predictions. I kind of mentioned that I thought Minnesota maybe would struggle a little bit, be maybe more towards that 8-9 range. You called me a little crazy when I said it. I feel like it's looking that way right now. They're in that 8-9 range. They're just such a weird team because they could be 0-5. I can see why you'd want to make a roster change because they, once again, just like last year, don't seem to be able to get it done in respawns. But at the same time, they're just so good at search that it feels like if they just click in respawns, at one point they could just make that run. So it's like they're still the weirdest and, in my opinion, the hardest team to evaluate right now in the league because it's very rare that you see a team that's so good in one game mode be so bad in the others. Like, I mean, you can't ever call them the worst hardpoint team in the game because you do have subliners who are 0-9 in hardpoint. They have not won a hardpoint map at all in Vanguard, which is absurd to think about in stage one. They haven't won a hardpoint if you don't count the kickoff classic. But Minnesota, in my opinion, is the hardest team to evaluate. I don't even know what to say for them right now because I literally almost want to pick them in any search and destroy against anybody else. And they've already shown their clutch factor so many times this year that we know they have, but it's so hard to trust them in any respawns.
Yeah, I don't think that they're getting bailed out in the sense that they're kind of ignoring their own shortcomings. I think they're very self-aware that they're a work in progress and they still have a lot of that to do and a lot of growing in the game. Um, I don't know. I I don't know when what their tolerance for um hanging out in like the 8-9 range is going to be. um it could be that they just stick it out through the year, through hell or high water. Whatever happens, they're just going to ride out the entire season with this 4. um
Mm-hmm.
but there are some players on the team that are struggling with engagements and like individual numbers and stuff. Like I'm looking like at Priesta, for example. Like just you would hope that he can turn it around in the coming weeks and stuff, but I don't know. And like you said, Rocker are just such a hard team to evaluate based on their parity between respawns and searches and stuff. If I could make prop bets on Rocker to lose the opening hardpoint every single match, I would. Because it just seems like you might as well just get to map number 2 because Rocker are not winning that opening hardpoint at this point in
Mm-hmm.
the game.
They rely too
Um,
much on their strength in S&D in a lot of ways because if they lose in S&D, if they lose that map too, it's almost like it's a guaranteed series loss because it's pretty hard to imagine them taking 2 of 3 respawns to
yeah.
force a map 5.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I want to see how they perform obviously on LAN. They could be Lanimals, like we saw last year as well. They just showed up at Major 5 after kind of looking like ho-hum. Obviously, Standy was having a lot better year last year. He's kind of, you know, he's not having a meteoric start to the season by any means. Not choking, but maybe they were relying too much on Standy being like an S tier number 1 SMG again, and just kind of like carrying their lunch pails into maps and stuff and just kind of getting it done that way, like scrappy work.
Yeah.
But it's not proven to work out for them yet. So yeah, that's about all I have on Rocker. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how they do in Major 1 LAN.
Yeah, my last piece before we move on from them is when you talk roster changes, I just feel like there's just zero chance that Standy or Attach are being dropped because they view Attach as the face of their franchise and then Standy kind of as their franchise player going forward. So I don't feel like they would think that making a change at main AR would be something that would solve their issues, especially since Major Maniac's been pretty good. It feels like Priesta might be the odd guy out if they make a change, which is crazy because once again, that's what's so weird about this team. I don't feel like any of them deserve to be dropped because they're all CDL caliber players and they're all very good. But I feel like if they make a change, it'll be picking up a submachine gun player and moving attached to the flex. That's what I think they're going to do if they make a change. It's going to be Standy with a new SMG duo attached, moves back to the flex, which is really his more natural position anyways. And then Major Maniac plays the AR. But we'll see what they do. Who knows? Maybe they'll make a crazy run here in this major and we'll be like, yeah, this is why we didn't doubt Rocker, because of their clutch factor on land. You never know. But moving on to the team that, of these 2 and 3 teams, besides maybe Ultra, is actually the team that I'm expecting to potentially make a big run at the LAN of these 2 and 3 teams. LAG, they obviously choke hard against Rocker and lose that match in that map 4. They're showing glimpses of like what we think their height could be, but they have so many consistency issues. What I will say, why I think that they're a team that I could see make a run on land. First of all, they have Slasher and Gunless, who have made countless runs on LAN. The thing I like about this team is I feel like Slasher has played very well this year and been very good in Search and Destroy as well. Gunless is like one of the top flexes in the game. He's got a 1.1 overall KD, and he has been frying. And Asim is one of the top SMGs in the game right now. If you don't believe that, go look at some of his advanced metrics. He's like top in all the engagements per 10 in like every game mode. I believe he's up there in first blood percentage. We'll get into that in a little bit. But Asim's been fantastic. Gunless has been fantastic. Slasher's been very good. And we know Hook always has that pop-off potential. And he's exactly sitting at a 1 KD this year, too. He hasn't been like a slouch by any means, but his SMG duo has been going off. And that's why I feel like this team has potential to make that run at any time, because I think Asim can have superstar series on LAN. I think Gunless can as well. And then, the 2 guys in the back burner are Slasher and Hook, who we've seen have plenty of superstar series on LAN. So, I'm not like panicking on LAG at all right now. I actually think that I feel pretty good about them, even though they're 2 and 3, because we've seen all their players have individual superstar moments. And I think Slasher teams, we always say it, it's kind of a meme. They always start slow. But I feel like they've looked pretty good in this stage. Just a couple of choke jobs prevent them from having a better record. But I'm really confident in this team, actually, surprisingly.
Yeah, and that's why in our script here I wrote, they're showing glimpses of their ceiling, but the consistency issues are, preventing them from having a better record and stuff. And we saw them kind of just like throw away that Berlin hardpoint versus Rocker. They could have closed it out in in 4 maps right there. But then they give Rocker an inch and they'll take a mile and stuff. And then just a couple other weird results in the group stage as well. But yeah, I definitely like echo everything you were talking about with like Gunless, Slasher, Asim, and then with who just has like the potential to add his voice to any game as well. And like you said, he's not choking. He's not like the odd man out here.
No,
But
he's just sitting at a solid 1 as the
yeah,
worst KD on the team at a 1.
yeah. So I mean, like this team, I would say out of the 2 and 3 teams, there's a lot of 2 and 3 teams, but this team might have
Them
one
and
of
the
the better
Ultra.
chances to yeah. You would have to look at obviously LAG Ultra as having the best chance out of this pack here to make some noise here at this upcoming LAN.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to see them play. Can't remember who they have in the first round. It's maybe the Ravens. I can't remember who they have. But we'll get into that next week when we do our bracket. We've got a couple more teams to discuss. We're kind of getting towards the bottom of the teams. Maybe we'll discuss each of them a little bit, but I really want to get into our next segment because that might be a little bit of a lengthy discussion. But we've got Boston as the last 2 and 3 team. They fall to NYSL and OpTic. Obviously, the NYSL loss very disappointing considering that they didn't have a win at the time. Boston was their first win. I don't know. This is why I left them. I believe last week in our power rankings, I still had them at like 9. And this is kind of why I had them there. I just feel like what we're seeing out of them right now is this week they struggled in Search and Destroy. And that was really like the strength of their team. And then when they struggled in Search and Destroy, they just couldn't close out a series because when you're not winning any Search and Destroys, it's going to be very hard for them to win a series with 3 respawns. Because let's be honest, talent level wise, I feel like they're maybe middle towards bottom of the league in terms of just pure raw talent, especially when they're playing a team like OpTic. And then in that map 5 Search and Destroy, talent kind of won out for New York as, Hydra. arguably one of the most talented players in the league, drops 17 or 18 in that map 5 on bow cage against them, and really just drags New York to that win. I don't know. I'm a little bit down on Boston. I still feel like because they're that classic team that could beat you in 2 search and destroys and just win the match through that I do think Boston still is an okay team, but I feel like I'm a little down on their ceiling. I do feel like they're still going to be able to compete for that 7-8 range and maybe make it to champs, but I think their ceiling is a little bit capped as of now, at least.
Yeah, I've been such a victim with Boston as far as like, initially I was like, okay, this team's gonna be like, bottom 2. And then Scrum Intel came out with their preseason like predictions and they're like Boston's number 4 or 3 or something. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm buying all the Boston stock. And then they did halfway decent at the kickoff, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll temper a little bit. And then I don't know. So I've just been kind of riding the wave. Like I live and die with every Boston result, to my own detriment. I think this team is slotting into that like 6 to 10 range.
Yep,
Probably
sure.
closer to 10 right now.
Yeah, it's either 8, 9.
Yeah. I mean, closer to the 10-ish range than 6. But yeah, I mean, obviously this team will, search and destroy will probably be their forte, and then if they can pick up the respawns here and there, they could make some noise. But I just think on trajectory, I think that they're headed right for that like battle for top 8.
Yeah, I agree. Then the team they lost to, New York, they fall to Faze. Obviously, they do beat Boston, like we just said, to avoid the 0-5 finish. I don't know. I don't really have too much I want to talk about this team because they do have Crim and Clay, but they're 1-4, so there's not a lot to talk about. Obviously, they're nowhere near where we expected them to be coming into the year, though. We expected them to maybe not be like the top team, but we expected a Crim and Clay team with a guy like Hydra and even Neptune's talent to be, I would say like coming into this stage, like before we saw any gameplay, we would expect them to be like at least 3-2. You'd think like a good middle of the pack team at a minimum, but obviously they're not. Can we be patient with Royalty? I feel like we need to give him some more time because he actually looked pretty good this week. I feel like he actually is a very good player that is a CDL caliber player. It's just a matter of will he be given enough time with this team, as they're probably going to be very urgent with Crim and Clay. Big question, can those two play together in 4v4? I do want to give them a LAN tournament, but unfortunately for them, they play the loser of Thieves Ultra in their first match. I believe is how it shakes out. I heard Ace say that on the flank. They play the loser of the Thieves Ultra, which is probably maybe the one you want to play the least the loser of because there's not one weak team. No matter who loses that series, I feel like they're going to beat New York pretty handily. So unfortunate for them, but can Crim and Clay play together in 4v4? I feel like they can. But I think the player that would have made the team work walked away to LAG this offseason. I also heard Ben talking about that in the flank, and I fully agreed with it when he was saying it. I was like, please mention it. If they had dirty work player Asim that was also a good comm guy on the map, I feel like him with Hydra and then Clay and Crim, this team would have been elite this year and they would have been a very good team. But unfortunately, because of some relationships, it seems like they let that guy walk. So unsure. I don't know. Can they still play together in 4v4? I'm like still so hesitant to say they can't because they literally are arguably the best 4v4 duo or just like duo in general of all time based on their like finishes. So it's pretty hard for me after one set of 5 online matches to just be like, yeah, Crim and Clay can't play together anymore. Crim and Clay can't play together. So I don't know. I don't have too much more to say on that team. And I do kind of want to move on to the last team that you love talking about, but you got anything to say about New York?
No, I would. I think you hit on all the talking points I wanted to. But yeah, I mean, big eyes towards how they perform on land. Definitely will.
Just so unfortunate they play the loser of Ultra Thieves.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but starting in 1-4, you're not going to start in winners, man. So
no, but they could have gotten the draw, where I mean, screw it. Maybe going 0-5 would have been better because then they could have played Boston. When they lose to Faze, if they would have been like the bottom seed, they could have played Boston potentially. Like it might have been better for them. But yeah, I mean, if although we could be talking a completely different narrative, if they're able to take out Ultra or Thieves in that first match, then whoa, we're talking a whole different narrative. But we can move on to our final team. I feel like we should just give you an hour block because you love talking about them so much. Paris, 0-5, not really a shocker. Really, the only storyline for this team is Temp has been frying and has looked like a high level, like top player in his role. but it hasn't led to much because the rest of his team is not performing. I'm not going to put that on temp and say he's putting up empty stats because I actually think he's been dragging them to map wins. Like they'd be maybe 0-15 map count if it wasn't for him dragging them. And then, I mean, Fellow and Decimate have looked pretty terrible. John, I actually was looking at stats. John is actually like a top 5 player in every control category, like kills per 10, damage per 10, KD, everything, but hasn't been very good in search and destroy or hardpoint. So he's maybe playing good in one game, which is why they've looked very good in control potentially because he's been actually helping temp out. But yeah, Paris 0-5. Roster changes have to happen. Keep temp in place. Maybe choose one of John or Fellow to keep in place and make some moves. But it's Paris, so they probably won't.
Yeah, I mean, you would just hope that they're able to win at least one match at some point.
Maybe they'll do it this weekend. They got some veterans on LAN. Fellow doesn't lose much on
Yeah,
LAN. Maybe they'll be able. I don't know who they play, but if they are maybe the team that does play like Boston, I wouldn't rule it out that they could beat Boston. Like I'm not gonna pick them, but it's not impossible. We'll see what they can do. All right. Ready to move on to our little segment we have here for top players at their positions?
yeah.
All right. So we have an idea for next week. I'll honestly full disclosure tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna do the full major predictions next week, obviously, and then maybe a little power rankings. But the whole episode next week is gonna be focused on the major. But then this week we want to do like something maybe involving the players heading into the major. So we're going to be listing each of us our top 10 SMGs and then top 5 ARs, top 5 flexes. We've been going for about an hour, so we don't maybe want to like dive super like debate style into them. Maybe we'll save. We have maybe a later episode planned like around major 2 to really dive into the players individually, but kind of going to go through maybe list a couple stats that led us to put the players there, but we can start with our SMGs if you want to and start at number 10. You want to go first or you want me to list mine? These are our top 10 players each position heading into the LAN. So maybe not like where we're projecting them to go, but right now who are our top 10 players heading into this LAN at SMG?
Yeah, so for number 10 for me, and it's kind of hard to split hairs, like so maybe if it's
Oh,
like
number 10. Yeah. I left
yeah.
out some great players.
Yeah, so number 10 I have Envoy.
Okay.
So for me it's just like, he's on a foreign he's, really starting to turn a leaf here in the last few weeks. Sitting at a 0.99 KD overall. His hardpoint stats are pretty good. I don't know. I've really been impressed with what I've seen from him, and it was more just like more than half of why I put him here was just like the gut feeling. It's like I feel like Envoy needs to be in the top 10. So
I actually was extremely happy with you when you said Envoy at 10 because he was the player I basically put at 11. I was debating between him and my 10 player, so I'm glad you put him at 10 because it kind of justifies like that range I had him in, but absolutely deserves to be here. Like I said, I mean, I cut out some guys like Envoy, even like Draza. There's some very good players. Hook, Attach, who's up there in KD, like Mac. I cut out some very good players out of my top 10, but somebody had to go since there's only 10. At 10, I actually went with a new player. I want to give him his flowers a little bit right now. I went with Capsidal. He's been very impressive to me. He has a 1.03 overall KD and a 1.14 in hardpoint. He's been frying in hardpoint. He's been very good in search. But the reason I have him not maybe a little higher, despite how good he's been in hardpoint searches, he's been very, very, very bad in control overall. He's been really struggling in control. Maybe that's a sign of impatience in a young player because control is a game mode that kind of relies a lot on patience and hitting cuts at the right time and stuff. But Capsule's been fantastic in hardpoint. I would actually venture to argue he's been one of the main reasons Boston's been competitive in hardpoints because they've been getting outslayed pretty heavy in a lot of those. But Capsule has had some moments where he's absolutely taken over and fried. And I like his potential as a young player. So that's why I've got him at number 10. All right. Number 9. I'll go first on this one. We can kind of alternate.
okay,
I've got a guy that I've hated on in the past, and he has the second lowest KD of the players I have in my SMGs in the top 10, but I have Bance at 9. He's a 0.96 overall in the year, but he, like the main stat I list for him, he's 6th in control kills per 10. He's in a lot of the top stats for control. But I feel like he's honestly been arguably Toronto's best player this year. He obviously, we know, is bringing a lot of the leadership qualities for Toronto. but he's had these pretty good numbers against very good teams, like we highlighted he's played. And honestly, he's at times looked like their lead slayer. He's outslaying Kleenex in a lot of the series they've played this year, and Bance has really, really impressed me.
Yeah, I like Vance there. I went with Nasty at number 9.
Okay.
And like I said, it's just like I don't know. I'm just kind of slotting these guys in.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the list that we differ the most.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
all three lists are going to be the most we differ all year because it's just so hard to place people right now.
yeah. So I don't know. I've been really more so just impressed overall with London. And their just their slaying has been pretty good as well. Like I was just like maybe London will find it in majors like 3 and 4, but I'm not sure about 1 and 2. And they've elevated themselves up to a 4-1 match count. Um, I don't know. I've been impressed with the sub duo, obviously playing second fiddle to Afro, who I'll have later on in my power ranking here, or in the power ranking here. But I don't know. I've been impressed with him. 1.05 overall KD. Maybe the hard point metrics aren't like, top tier. He is more of like a hill guy for them as well. He has like, a little over a minute and a half per hard point as well. S&D, you'd like to see him pick it up maybe just a little bit here, in the kills per round. But yeah, I've been impressed, and I think it's worthy of mention here in the top 10.
Yeah, he's going to be coming up on my list pretty shortly. I'll be honest, but at number 8, I've got Pred. Feel like he dropped down the list a little bit after this week just because of them going 0-2. He may have been a little bit higher if we'd have done this a week or two ago. But I've got him at number 8. When I saw his overall KD, I was like, does he deserve to be here? He's one of the lower SMGs. He is the lowest KD SMG I have on my list, overall KD. But then as you dive into some of his like detailed stats, it shows the story of why he's been so impactful on the map and why Seattle may have been so good to start. He has 23.4% first blood percentage, which is second behind. I mean, I think you can all guess who. Abezy. Technically, it's third, but Hecz is number 1 in first blood percentage. So that's a little bit skewed, and I don't really count that because it's only one map. But 23.4% first blood percentage, second in the league. He's also third in control kills per 10. And actually, Hardpoint has been by far his worst game mode. He's been kind of dominant in Search and Destroy, especially, like I said, First Bloods, and then very, very good in Control. He's actually got a 0.91 in Hardpoint, and it's pretty low in a lot of the overall like Hardpoint kills per and damage per and everything. But he's been very, very good in the other 2 game modes. And let's be honest, he's had some moments in Hardpoint where he's looked fantastic. And some of those stats are a little skewed because of how much the team overall struggled the last 2 weeks. But Pred's been fantastic. He's having a great impact on the map. Almost playing that Abezy type role for them in Search and Destroy.
Yeah, for me, I actually have Pred right here as well.
Okay, so we're in sync with one at least.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I'll leave all the stats as you said them. Just for me, he's just had such a large impact on maps with his engagement numbers. I think last week we saw him have like over 200 in a single series, um, which was just like crazy. He had like over 100 deaths, but he had like more than more than 100 kills as well, which is like holy crap. He's just really just getting in a ton of gunfights. And still I would still have him in running for rookie of the year as well. Just based on, if Seattle can keep up their good pace. I don't want to let one bad week or,
No,
one 0-2 week like completely bias me against Seattle now. Um I'm
no, you don't want
confident
to
that
get too high or too low on any of these players.
yeah, I'm confident that they'll come back and you know, maybe not be as dominant as they were as other teams improve around them as well. But yeah, I think that Pred is deserving of a spot in the top 10 right now.
Absolutely. For my number 7, I'll just kind of like mention it and move on because you've talked about this guy already. This is where I have Nasty. He's got a 1.05 overall, and London, like you said, is overachieving based on maybe what we set their standards for coming into this stage. But Nasty's been incredible, and I have him at number 7. Who you got at 7?
7 for me, I have Simp. Uh,
Okay, probably the lowest
maybe
he'll ever be.
yeah, maybe a little bit lower just because, he hasn't been the Simp that we, have come to expect. Um, I mean, can't really fault him. He has a 1.03 overall KD. Hardpoint stats are fine from what I'm seeing. KD and search, you'd always expect him to have a high one, 1.45. And yeah, I mean, I've been impressed with him, even though obviously Faze 5-0, but Simp, you'd like to see him improve. I think there's definitely room for him to improve as well, obviously. So like you said, the lowest he'll probably ever be for a top 10 SMGs. For me at 7.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think that like 7, being the 7th best at your position in the league is a pretty crazy accomplishment. When you're an SMG, at least because of how many there are. But it's insane that it seems so low for him. Uh, Moving on to 6, though, I've got Hydra. Got a 1.01 overall. He's like literally basically the top in all control stats. He is dragging his team in their only series win this year. He had 17 or 18 kills in the map 5 to as well as like an ace in the final round or 3 of the 4 kills in the final round. He's carrying this team. He looks absurd this year. He literally looks like an MVP caliber player. It's just unfortunate that his team is not backing him up and not putting the map wins on the board. But Hydra's been unreal this year, and he's proven that last year was not a fluke and that he is looking to be one of the top SMGs of the future.
Yeah, for me at 6, I have Draza, the other
Okay.
half of the Thieves sub duo. I don't know. I'm just you know, early season. I was like, maybe they need to build around Draza, and I feel vindicated every week. I see him perform well, and Thieves perform well as well. Um, but yeah, I've been impressed just with individual maps that he's had. His stats are more middle of the road when you look in, like, you compare him to who's around him in each category. It's not like he's leading the charts in any category per se. So yeah, I mean, I guess maybe the closest one he's to the top is in control. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've just been impressed with how he's integrated in to his sub role as well. Especially since there was
Yeah.
all that talk about him. Oh, is Kenny going to take the sub and then he's going to have to flex, and you know he'll be the odd man out if they're struggling and stuff. I think he's put a lot of rumors and speculation to bed.
Yeah, I really like that one. I actually don't have him on my list, which is unfortunate because, like I said, him and Envoy feel like needed to be on here. But I wanted to give shouts to Bance and Capsule, which kind of bumped them out for me. Uh, but absolutely deserving to be in any top 10. Um, I actually really like his fit on their team as well because I feel like Envoy, he's taking routes, he's making plays, maybe taking long hits. Uh, and I feel like Draza fits perfectly into that role where he's more playing like the typical like pre-aim heavy SMG where he's kind of maybe backing up Envoy's play. Envoy's kind of the guy lead the charge. And I love it because Octane is perfect for those kind of SMGs, those pre-aim heavy SMGs. And then Kenny obviously is a faster flex, so he'll speed things up with Draza and kind of like I don't know. I feel like they have a good balance where Draza can speed it up with his flex, but also kind of like slow play it, take a long route with his other SMG duo. And I feel like he's just kind of in a perfect spot on this team, and it's showing because he's been playing fantastic this year. Um, and this is like I said, this is going to be the most interesting and different list we ever have because it's so up in the air right now. Like as we get into stage 2, stage 3, it's going to be more settled on who the top players are. At number 5, though, I feel like at some point, at least I hope you're going to have this guy coming up. Maybe we have him in the same spot. I've got Asim.
Yep, I have him at 5 as well, so we can hash
Yeah,
that out.
I mean, he's got a 1.05 overall, which for him is pretty crazy because he's viewed as like the quote unquote dirty player SMG, like the dirty work guy. Uh, he's got a 17.2 first blood percentage in Search and Destroy, which is fantastic. He actually has the number 1 control kills per 10 minutes as well. So number 1 in that stat category. He's been unreal in control, which is a game mode that maybe doesn't get enough love for people being a top player in, but it's a swing mode. Uh, He's also been fantastic in hardpoint, fantastic in search. Like I said, he's doing the dirty work for his team. He's very quickly becoming one of my favorite players in the entire league because, once again, I like to find players that I kind of mold my game like, and I kind of feel like the way I like to play the game is Abezy, fast pace, or not Abezy, sorry, Asim, fast paced sub in your face, getting a lot of first bloods, just wreaking havoc on the map, getting in a lot of engagements, and just being annoying and unlocking the map for your teammates. And I feel like Asim does that, and that's maybe one of the main reasons we're seeing a gunless resurgence this year and him looking like a top flex again. So shout out to Asim. He's been unreal this year, making it look like a big mistake for New York to drop him.
Yeah, I mean, Asim, he's put up some crazy map results as well. Like he's gone like double positive and a couple, deciding hard points and stuff as well. Just I mean, I really like him as well. Just he's kind of been like that journeyman player. Like Rocker dropped him, and then New York dropped him, and now he's on this Gorillas team, and seems to have found a good role for himself there. So you just hope that he's able to continue the positive results here, and you know kind of find a home for himself, more or less, you would say. Like the player behind the controller, I guess. Because I,
Yeah,
I really like his play style. I like watching him on the map as well. Um, and obviously his performance in all three game modes is pretty impressive. Especially he's making a name for himself in the league. Week over week. So yeah.
yeah, I absolutely love Asim as a player. I feel like he's one of those players that like you can literally take him, insert him in any roster anytime, and he would probably find a way to fit in. Which is something that's amazing and makes it really easy to build around, and it's really makes it really easy to form your team because it's like he's not pigeonholed into one like role. Obviously, he's an SMG, not meaning role in terms of gun he uses, but like he could just do anything on the map. Like if you need him to slay out, he'll do it. If you need him to entry, he'll do it. If you need him to go get you a first blood, he's going to do it. Like he can do everything on the map, and that's why I love him as a player. He's fantastic, and he, like you said, hopefully he's finally finding a home because it feels like he was pretty good on Minnesota, gets removed from that team, then he kind of luckily gets a spot on uh, NYSL because Hydra is unable to come over early enough and makes it stick. And now he's in LAG, and hopefully he finds a home there. But at number 4, I've got a player you've already talked about as well, so I don't need to dive too much into him. He doesn't really need much justification for being 4. That's where I've got Simp. Uh, Once again, even 4 for him is crazy low because he's usually 1, or if he's 2, it's usually his teammate Abezy, number 1. But I've got Simp at 4. Who do you got there?
I've got Hydra, just because he's
Okay.
carrying New York's water right now.
Yeah.
um, and still managing to put up pretty impressive numbers, even though the team is just like really struggling to find a foothold here. Um, yeah, I mean, uh, to even have a positive KD on that team is pretty impressive as well. So yeah, I mean, I just, and it would seem like he's in early season MVP form. You would even venture to say, but yeah, you would just obviously kind of hampered by New York's struggles.
Yeah, by their finishes.
Yes, I mean, you could even make an argument that that he should be lower just based on the team not having results. But I just think his individual play has been so impressive for me that I'll keep him at 4 and kind of stick to my guns there.
Yeah, I like that. I'm thinking there's a potential we have the same final 3 here. Uh, I would have to assume it probably is the same final 3 players, maybe same order. I'm not sure. At 3, I've got Abezy. Um, Kind of crazy to think that Abezy is this low because he's usually towards the top, meaning 1 or 2. But I mean, he's got a 1.11 overall KD, which I've got the stats up here. I mean, that ranks as 5th in the league and 3rd among SMGs. He's obviously number 1 in his first blood percentage at 26.9%. That is ridiculous. Over a quarter of the time, he's getting first blood. He is first in hill time, which is an underrated stat. He actually has 102 seconds on the hill per game. Like he's approaching 2 minutes in the hill, which is pretty crazy because he also is like top in engagements per map in hardpoint. So he's towards the top in engagements, but he's also always in the hill. He's like the top in first bloods. He's got a 1.25 hardpoint KD. He's also got a 1.05 in search. His worst game mode being control at a 0.91. That's like his only downfall. I mean, Abezy's having an unreal year, maybe under the radar because his teammate Cellium is arguably the best player in the game right now. But Abezy's been absolutely unreal this year. I can see an argument for him being number one on a list right now with his advanced metrics show that he's having like an insane impact on the map.
Yeah, for me, my number 3 is Afro.
Okay.
I think unquestionably should be in the top 3, whichever order you put these guys in. Honestly, uh, I would agree that we probably do have the same top 3. But yeah, Afro has just been so impressive along all 3 game modes. His search and destroy, um, he is at 18.2% first blood, which is I believe 5th in the league. And hardpoint, he's putting in a bunch of hill time as well. In addition to um, having a positive a 1.10 KD, and then control. Um, he's been the third best in terms of KD at a um, 1.22 I'm seeing right here, and then
Yeah.
also in terms of kills per 10, he's fourth there as well. So, um, and he's the standout SMG, the one that everyone was talking about with, if London is gonna, build around Afro, he's gonna need to step up and really have himself a title here, and through qualification for stage one, he's really been impressive. So I have him
Yeah.
at 3.
Yeah. All right. Uh, well, you're gonna find out how my order is now because I've got Shotzzy at 2. Uh, he's got a 1.13 overall. He's top 10 in essentially every single advanced stat as well. He's also second in S&D kills per round at I believe a 0.87, which is behind Cellium, who has 0.98, which is absurd. But Shotzzy has been an absolute beast in S&D, which maybe you could argue was his weak game mode coming into the year. Top 10 in nearly every category. He's been absolutely frying, just like we'd expect. I can absolutely see the argument for him number one, but we'll get to me talking about Afro at number one in a second. But I'm assuming this is where you have either Abezy or Shotzzy, and then the other one's number one.
Yeah, I have a Abezy here at 2. Um, you covered him at 3 with the stats. The first bloods are just ridiculous.
Every year, the
Over
guy's number one
yeah,
without
yeah,
question.
yeah.
And he's not number one by a little bit either. He's dominant at number one always.
Mhm.
First to mill time's absurd for him too.
Yeah, that's really kind of surprising there. And he's also putting in a crazy amount. He's over 3K damage in hardpoint per 10.
Yeah,
Uh,
everything. The guy's topping everything.
yeah. Um, and yeah, maybe the name gives him a little bit more clout to get up there in the power rank or in the top 10 for me. So I don't know. I can't differentiate P's from Q's here.
No, and like you said, this top three can go in any order, and then that means you've got Shotzzy at one, which we pretty much covered, and you covered Afro, but I've got him at one. I'm gonna be honest. I think you could really argue that Afro's three behind these two, but if we're doing Ryan's power rankings of favorite players in the league, Afro is maybe already climbed up to number two behind Kenny. I love this guy. I said it coming into the year, he was like my player that I was rooting for this year, and so all you EU fans, be hyped. I'm a huge Afro fan, which is kind of the reason that I wouldn't consider myself like a London fan as like my favorite team or anything, but they're definitely a team I root for more often than not. And Afro is really the main reason why. I love the way this guy plays the game. He actually is the number one SMG KD in the league at a 1.14, just 0.01 ahead of Shotzzy. So really a pretty negligible difference. But he's like towards the top in every major stat category as well. I think the big thing that separates him from Shotzzy and Abezy, in my opinion, is Abezy at a 0.91 in control, Shotzzy at a 1.05, and Afro at a 1.22. Other than that, in terms of their S&D KD, he falls in the middle of the other two, and then in terms of hardpoint, he falls just below Shotzzy and a little bit below Abezy. So can make the argument for any of them, but honestly, I wanted to just give shouts to Afro and put him at number one because I feel like at some point Shotzzy and Abezy and Simp might overtake him, but right now the guy's had an unreal stage one. So I put him at number one for that. All right. Which category you want to do next? ARs or flexes for top five?
We could do flexes.
All right. So obviously for this one, we're only doing five because if you do top 10, you cover 10 of the 12. at their position in the league, and then you're basically just covering all of them. So going to flexes, number 5, I went with probably a shocker that I know you don't have on your list, but I went with Donnie Temp. Uh, he's got a 1.05 overall KD. If you go through all the stats, he's like quite literally in like the 9 to 12 or 13 range in every single hardpoint, S&D, and most control like categories. He's literally like towards like the bottom of the top 10 in every single category for all positions, which basically is showing he's almost a top 10 player in the league by every advanced metric right now. He is like the only reason Paris is winning a single map, apart from like John being towards the top in every control stat. Everybody else is like towards the bottom and everything. And Temp is dragging this team to map wins. Granted, they don't have many, but Temp has been unreal this year. And I feel like he's just going to get trashed all year because of Paris' struggles. And I think he deserves a shout out at 5 because he has been fantastic this year. Really a career resurgence in a way with how good he's played. It's just he needs a good team now.
Yeah, for me, I have Illy. I've been impressed with
Yeah.
how he's turned around from week 1 to now, especially with OpTic having a resurgence with where they started. So yeah, that's been my bit with Illy. Really is middle of the road for stats. I mean, he's not world beating any metric, but especially like answering the bell for people were like, oh, if this team struggles, Illy's going to be the first one out, and Illy this, Illy that. I feel like he's had a lot thrust on his shoulders. So yeah, I mean, maybe more for like the intangibles. That's I'll put him at 5.
I actually love that one. I'm actually pretty disappointed in myself that I don't have him in my top 5 because I think he's been absolutely crucial to OpTic's success over these last 3 matches. I think that's a great call out there. Also, one thing I just remembered was Big Wake. We kind of put him as an asterisk because I swear him and like Skies have been switching off. I can't even tell who's the SMG because they play so much Bow Cage. I thought they said like Skies was supposed to be the flex, but then I see Big Wake with an AR out a lot on the maps. They're both pulling on an AR on certain situations and certain maps. So we didn't list Big Wake anywhere, but I feel like we would just wanted to mention him as like he falls probably somewhere in the top 5 flexes or SMGs or top 10 SMGs, depending on where you want to put him, because he does have a 1.1 overall and he's been frying this year. So wanted to mention that. We both talked about we weren't going to put him on our list because the roles in that team are so messed up, but Big Wake deserves to be on these lists somewhere. All right. Number 4, I've got Sib. I don't know where you have him or if you have him on your list at all, because I could justify maybe moving him down a little bit, but I've got him at 4. He's got a 1.02 KD overall, which is crazy to think because he started at like 1.4 for the first couple series. That's how slow he was these last 2 series. To me, he drops down to 4 instead of maybe the top 3 because ridiculously hot start, but ridiculously slow finish for these last 2 matches. And I feel like in order to hit the top 3, in my mind, the top 3 players on this list have been arguably the 3 most consistently good players in the entire league, not just flex. So their consistency separates them from Sib, and I put him at 4.
Yeah, for me, my number 4 is Gizmo.
Really? Wow.
Yeah,
I thought you'd
I've
have him
been.
higher.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Throwing darts at a dartboard for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, his obviously really way up. I mean, 1.2 in overall KD. Hardpoint stats have been top 10
Yeah.
overall. He's doing pretty well in search as well. And control, he's top of the league as well. So maybe justified to be higher. And this
He's a
is more
number 2
just
overall KD in the league.
yeah, and this is totally just like new guy bias as well. It's like I just want to see more from him, and maybe that's unfair to
Yeah.
not have him sit at like number 2 or number 1 even. But I don't know. I feel like the flexes have really come out in force at the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
We
Top
have
2 KDs.
we have a lot of really good flex players in the league right now, and their numbers are really up there.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. Some of the guys that, like I left Illy off my list. I left Kenny off my list, who's been playing extremely well. Um, even like for you, you're leaving off Temp. I'm not sure if you're leaving off guys like Kenny and like some other players, but Temp has a 1.05. Kenny has a 1.05. There's some good players being left off lists. I left Ilya off my list, who's been fantastic. The flexes have really been good. I mean, I don't know if he's making your list, but Cammy isn't making my list. Cammy's maybe down in the 7 or 8 range right now for flexes because he's had a struggle to start the year. I'd be willing to put some money on the fact that Cammy's going to find his way into one of these top 5 lists as the year goes on. But flexes have been unreal this year. At number 3, in my opinion, I feel like the top 3 is like pretty definitive. But we differ a little bit on it. So I'm interested to see where your top 3 goes. I've got Gunless at 3. He's got a 1.1 KD, 14.1% first blood percentage, which is pretty high for a player like him that maybe is a little bit slower in search. 3,100 or so damage per 10 in hardpoint, which is pretty crazy once again for a flex. He's been pretty much in old school gunless form that we were used to seeing. Another like career resurgence type year where he's just looked absolutely crazy good. And I think kind of one of my bold predictions for this weekend, as long as they're maybe able to win the first match and have a good run, I think Gunless might be an MVP form on land this weekend.
Yeah, I have Gunless at number 3 as well. Been really impressed with how well he's been able to flourish with having 3 good players around him as well that understand the roles and have been really just opening up the map for him to be able to have good slaying numbers as well. I feel like he dropped like a 40 bomb. It might have been this week or last week, but been putting up really good numbers. Uh, really good damage numbers in hardpoint. Uh, search KD is not too bad as well. I don't know. He's just been like you said, kind of winding back the clock a little bit to the gun list that a lot of people have been giving him credit for and saying like we just need to see this gun list back and then everything will be right in the world and stuff. So I don't know. I've been kind of buying into the gunless hype train a little bit.
Yeah, he's been unreal. I'm so happy to see it too because I'm a pretty big Gunless fan. I think you all know. Moving on to my number 2. This is where I've got Gizmo, though. You already mentioned a lot of his stats. He's got a 1.2 KD this year, second in the league, behind I would hope, who is also your number 1 flex. He's top 10 in almost everything. Hard point kills per 10, damage in pretty much every game mode. So yeah, I've got Gizmo at 2. I'm assuming you probably have Sib here.
I have Kenny.
Okay, thank you. I like Kenny there. I was like, so you didn't put Sib in your top 5?
I didn't this
Okay.
time.
I respect it. I was gonna say I thought you were gonna have Sib here, and I was gonna bring up their stats, Gizmo and Sib playing head to head, because Gizmo dropped to
Mhm.
1.1 and Sib dropped to 0.75. But I'm so glad he put love on Kenny because I struggled to not put him at 5 just because I wanted to show some love to Temp. But yeah,
Yeah,
Kenny's been great too.
and Kenny here for me is, you can't really put numbers on it because, obviously Gizmo would make that case all day and win it. Um, but I don't know, I've just been, and this is more just like how Kenny is kind of silencing the haters and saying that, Kenny should be the one to get dropped or if Thieves are struggling or I don't know, just like he's kind of dispelled a lot of, maybe naysayers around his name. And just the way Thieves have been playing, I feel like it's kind of everything kind of flows you know through Kenny in a way. And like I said, the flexes have really kind of had their way at the beginning in stage 1 of this title. So um, I don't know. I've really been Kenny's caught my eye a lot, and I really like what I've seen from him. So maybe you could in a different time frame or something, you could say Gizmo definitely should be number 2. I wouldn't argue with that. I wouldn't put up a fight and say that, like, oh, I'm gonna ride and die with Kenny at 2. But yeah, uh, I don't know. Kenny for me too. What I felt
Yeah,
like. I don't know.
I mean, There's one way to get me not to argue, and that's just throw my favorite player on their list. I mean, I'm not gonna say you're wrong. I'm gonna I'm gonna say, yeah, you know what, he should maybe be number one. I'm never gonna argue with anybody placing Kenny high on a list. That's my guy. Like if I had to pick a team to support, it might be LA Thieves, just because I'm such a big Kenny fan. Half the time you'll see me, I'm kind of memeing because sometimes when there's like a random team playing, I'll post that like picture of the guy carrying the flag of their team, like whatever team it is that I'm like randomly rooting for in that series. You probably will see it's going to be tough because my boys are playing this weekend. Cammy and Kenny are playing. You're probably going to see the post of the LA Thieves flag though, because my boy Kenny's playing, so I'm never going to argue against him. But yeah, like you said, it's pretty hard to rank these top guys right now, and it's insane. Like Kenny's left off my list, Sib is left off your list, like Illy's left off my list. There's some crazy good flexes because they've all been really pretty absurd this year. I think it's pretty crazy that you can have a guy at 2 on your list and he doesn't crack the top 5 in my list, but it's justified. Like I can see why you have Met 2. That's how crazy good the flexes have been and how really spread out it's been. Crazy that also like before this week, Sid probably would have been number 1 or 2, and then after how slow of a week he had, he drops pretty far. But I don't know that we need to talk too much about number 1. I mean, I think Cellium should be everybody's number 1. If you do a list of overall players, not filtered by position, he might be number 1. There's a very good argument to be made that Cellium's the best player in the game right now. I think you'd probably agree with that. Maybe you don't think he's the best player, but he's definitely in that argument. Got a 1.29 overall, which is number 1 in the league and almost a full 0.1 ahead of number 2 Gizmo. He's getting 0.98 kills per round in S&D. And in S&D, he has a 2.68 KD through the 5 matches they played. He's getting 0.98 kills per round. So essentially, he's getting 1 kill per round. That is insane. Cellium has been unreal. I think you can make a legit argument that he's the best player in the game right now, which is scary because we know the potential that the rest of his teammates have to also be the best player.
Yeah, I mean, he was my preseason pick to win regular season MVP, so
It's looking good.
I feel justified in that. Obviously, a lot changes over the course of and life cycle of the game. But Cellium just, he's like the buoy. You can't really sink him. He's always there. He's always like, he's just like around and like ever since he came into this Faze team, it's like he's just like there. He's the presence on the map. He's a hard kill. He always seems to be making the right plays. Just a very smart player. I know he gets a lot of stuff thrown on his name. He's always in like the thumbnails for the Tactical Rab like drama videos and stuff. But I mean, this guy, shows up and he does his job, and he's getting the payoff right now, being the best player in the game.
Yeah, and like he's been unreal. We heard Doug say he thinks that Cellium might be the hardest kill in COD history. That's a debate for you could have a whole debate on who that would be, but you can see the argument because with his, maybe snaking and ratty play style, he is just impossible. Like you're never gonna get a free kill on Cell, really. He's always gonna make it difficult and he's gonna buy time for his teammates. And he's been unreal this year. I think we can move into our ARs though, if you're ready, and then kind of wrap this podcast up.
Yeah.
All right. So ARs, obviously, once again, only 5 of them. Not going to rate 10 of the 12 because then you're just getting into the bottom. Another category that I really think can go any which way. I think my number 2 AR might not be on your list at all, but I think another guy that deserved a shout out. But I'm starting at number 5. I've got Octane. He's got exactly a 1 KD on the year. He's got a 16.7 first blood percentage, which was over 2% higher than any other main AR, which is something to note because 2% might not sound like a lot, but in this category, it's a pretty big difference when the second highest AR was, I believe, Dave Patey at like a 14 something percent. But Octane's been very good. Obviously, his team is 4-1. Also rating him on a little bit of intangibles here. We heard that listening and everybody in the timeline was gassing Octane's comms. He really seems to have stepped into an IGL type role for maybe the first time in his career because as we know, most of his career, his playing career has been spent with Looney, who is obviously the in-game leader on all their teams, and him and Looney won many, many events together with Looney as the IGL, and then obviously his successful year on 100 Thieves was with Slasher, who is more of the IGL on that team. So maybe the first time he's really stepping into that IGL role, he said he was gassing Looney on the timeline, saying he learned it all from him. And honestly, kind of a mix of intangibles. And obviously, we know Octane's raw talent. He's been playing unreal this year, so I've got him at 5.
Yeah, for my number 5, I didn't pick it. I did not pick anybody. I feel like the AR play has been, suspect at best. So I was like, I had a top 4, and I was like, who do I want to put at 5? And I couldn't like pick anybody. Um, I have Octane on my list. He'll be a little bit higher.
Okay.
Maybe just like favoritism bias and stuff too. But I was like, do I want to put like? I guess like if I was to, pick anybody, it would maybe be Insight,
Yeah, and
and
I was gonna
that's
think
just
about him,
more
but
out of
he's down
that's
for my expectations, I think.
yeah. I mean, he is down, but it's like the rest of the ARs are playing down as well. It's like
I'll be interested. Yeah.
I was thinking about methods, but I was like, yeah, he's been kind of just like ho hum as well. I
Accuracy.
was thinking about accuracy just because of the ice as well.
He
Like
was fantastic against London too. The only player that really showed up for them.
yeah. So I mean, it's just like I don't know. Maybe put like I have my top 4. Put the other 8 ARs on a dartboard, and I'll just toss one at it and pick that as my
I hope you land on
as my
fellow.
5th. Um, I maybe I'll pick Clayster just for the memes or something.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. He may end up on this list at some point this year. I'll never count him out.
yeah.
Uh,
But yeah,
we,
I just couldn't be sold. I wasn't passionate about the ARs yet, and
see, I actually battled for 5.
it's rare because usually the ARs come out to play early. They're just sitting in lanes, kill whoring.
Yeah, usually their
Uh,
stats are higher at the beginning of the year.
yeah, yeah, and right now it's just like I don't know. So, long and short of it, I didn't really commit to a 5th, so we could move into 4.
Who you have it for?
I have at 4 we have Mr. Slasher.
That's who I have as well.
I've been impressed with how fast he started personally. Uh,
Yeah.
with the Slasher teams might be slow to start, but Slasher Austin Liticote himself has started pretty fast.
Yeah,
Um, I
I'm
mean, he's
yeah.
not setting the world on fire, but he's also been leading this team. And IGL hardpoint stats have been really you know decent, I guess. I mean, um, and I don't know. I mean, just across the board, just kind of middle of the pack in terms of like all players in the league. But when it comes to your main AR and stuff, I feel like he's been pretty impressive, and
Yeah.
considering where the other ARs are at too.
I'm looking for a big weekend on him. Like I said, I just did look. LAG are playing London in round 1, so that maybe limits their ceiling on what they can do this weekend because of how hot London's been. But I, you know how high I am on London. I'm not ruling out LAG to win that first round matchup. I feel pretty good. I mean, we're listing ASIM in the top 5 for SMGs. I mean, we're listing Gunless, both of us, in the top 5 for flexes. Now we're both listing Slasher in the top 5 for ARs. And, the one player we're not listing on their team is Hook. So, like, whoa. I mean, LAG, they've got a lot of talent. If they can just piece together uh, these games, it'll be interesting to see where they go. Uh, I'm curious to see if you have my number 3 AR on your list as well. Simply because I feel like he's down from our expectations as well, but I still think he deserves to be on this list because of team success. And he's also played pretty well, and that's Arcitys. I have him at 3. He's exactly at a 1 KD, maybe not like a world beater KD by any means, but he's got pretty good overall stats in hardpoint. He's got exactly a 1. He's also up there towards the top in S&D first blood percentage for ARs. And he's been struggling in control. He's just been overall like a pretty decent AR this year, but I feel like he deserves that 3 spot because he's still been putting up good numbers. Well, it's hard to put up slaying numbers when you have Abezy and Cellium in like top 5 or 6 for KD. 2 players in your team are top 6. It's gonna be hard for you to be up there as well. But I feel like Arcitys is deserving of being here in the top 5, and I've got him at 3.
Yeah, for my number 3, I have Octane. Um, more so just because I've really liked what LAT has done so far, and Octane, like you said, stepping into that IGL role possibly.
Oh yeah,
It, for me,
cannot be overstated how important that is.
yeah, and for me, it was more like surprising that he hadn't done it sooner in his career. But I mean, like you said, with the Thieves, with 100 Thieves roster,
Yeah,
BO4, like obviously he was playing behind Slasher, who was obviously more comfortable in that role, and then the 2 lost years, I'll call it, on Surge, where it didn't seem like they knew what their head from their ass,
Yeah.
in gameplay. It's like, I don't know, whatever.
And then pretty much every year he was with either JCap or Looney,
Right, yeah, so obviously you have natural IGLs there, but,
two of the greatest. Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know, I just like Octane on the list, I like them at 3, um, yeah.
I mean, God, I didn't even realize like when you mentioned that he had JCap and Looney and like all the other years, and then like the one time he took a break from having either of them, he had Crim. So he's like always had a natural, like one of the best in-game leaders of all time. So he learned from a lot of greats, a lot of different styles: Crim, JCap, Looney, Slasher. I mean, like it's almost like a coaching tree there. He's been with like all the greats. So that's interesting to actually note. Uh, I want to hear who you've got at number two because I'm going to be very, very disappointed in you if you don't have the guy I have at number two.
I have Arcitys at 2.
Oh my God, you're gonna miss. Oh, okay, okay, go it, do it.
Um, I don't know, I just like, I mean, it's hard to fault a team that's 5-0, to not include all 4 of their players in our top 5/10 list. I don't know, I feel like it would be disrespectful.
Yeah,
Um, I like Arcitys. I think that he might be in that like Major Maniac Modern Warfare role where he's just kind of like, you know, doing the bare bone, or not bare bones, that's the wrong term, but doing what's necessary to let, Simp, Abezy, and Cellium flourish. And I feel like that was kind of the role he had in Cold War as well, where he was just kind of like, I'm just here to, I know. I think once they won champs, he was up on stage and he's like, "Yeah, I just do all the work, all the hard work, and they just, all these players just slay out in front of me." And I feel like he might be in that role again. So numbers might not be like crazy high, but yeah, Arcitys, I you can't disrespect him by leaving him out of the top 5, can you? So that was my justification there.
I just can't believe that means you probably don't have my number two player, and that's Zero. Uh, at
I
number
was I
two,
was debating it, putting him at 5. He
I
was one
can't
of the
believe you
players I
didn't.
was juggling.
He's
Yeah.
got a 1.03, which ranks him as third among main ARs in KD, and also that puts him behind Dashy, who I'm assuming is probably your number one, and then Dave Patey, who is number one in main AR KD, who did not make my list just because I feel like he isn't having as much impact on the map. Although he's been fantastic in Search and Destroy, but Zero, I mean, first of all, if we're accounting for in-game leadership mattering, I would argue what he's doing with London and a bunch of pretty much brand new players is as impressive, if not more impressive, than what Octane's doing with a bunch of experienced players. Uh, and Zero, you look at his stats across the board: 1.01 in hardpoint, dealing good damage, averaging towards the top in hill time. In S&D, he's at a 1.06. He's around 10% in first blood. In control, he's around a 1.07. He's constantly around a 1.05. And that is with his teammates Afro and Gizmo being number 2 and 3, or excuse me, number 3. No, Gizmo's 2. Yeah. Gizmo's 2 in KD and Afro's 3 in KD, and Nasty is also in the top 10. And Zero's finding himself at what, 13 or 14 in overall KD, third for ARs. Everybody on his team, I mean, he's got 3 top 10 KDs on his team, and he still finds himself at a 1.03 and at 13 in the CDL. I mean, uh, he's been absolutely unreal as a leader. He's been hitting some crazy snipes. He's got his team that maybe nobody expected to be this good at 4-1. I think it's a crime to have Zero off your top 5 ARs list. Uh, and I also had him as my comeback player of the year in our little early thing, and I feel like that's like your Cellium pick. I feel like that's off to a pretty good start for Zero being comeback player of the year. I think he deserves shout out because I basically think he's doing what Octane is doing this year, but actually putting up maybe slightly better stats while doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I just think Zero is so unsung.
Yeah,
In
exactly.
terms of in
He's
terms of
the
like,
he's not flashy.
yeah, in terms of like, even like the desk isn't doing him justice in talking about, oh, Zero really, like, pay attention to, how he's like, organizing the team, and just the intangible stuff, because his numbers aren't flashy.
And
I mean, they're very middle of the road, like, I'll just say it, pedestrian numbers in terms of like where he falls in terms of everyone else in the league.
yeah, he is number
Um,
3 for ARKD though.
yeah. I mean, but like if you're just looking at everybody's KD, it's middle of the road. Like if you take into account SMGs and
He's
flexes and stuff
13.
too. Yeah.
13
So
out of 48.
yeah, but I mean, I don't know. So maybe that's why he didn't find his way onto my list. I'll put my hand up and say, guilty as charged there. Um, Probably
Yeah.
should have. Obviously, their team is 4-1. It's a little bit.
It's also like I don't know. It's crazy to me that he falls so under the radar on the desk and everything. Because like, ask any of our EU listeners before Bance had his pretty crazy last year with Ultra and like winning the first European event in a while. Zero was like viewed as pretty much the undisputed, maybe besides Jerd, like the undisputed best European player of
I
all
think
time.
you called him the best European player of all time
Before Bance's last
on
year, he was
multiple times.
undoubtedly.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
he was, I mean, he was the first EU player to win a international event with like both EU and NA, and he was, I believe, the MVP of that event. He won it with Bance. They're kind of the two guys in the conversation. I'd probably say Bance is now the best because of his last year or two and how much success he's seen with Zero being out of the league at the time. But Zero deserves all the flowers in the world, and I like you said, I can't stand that people are overlooking him right now and like not giving him his love. So he needs to see that love. Who you got at number one though?
I have Dashy.
Yeah, I do as well, but you know what that means? That means that we both left the number one KDAR off our list, which is crazy. Dave Patey is the number
Dave.
one.
Yeah.
He's got the number one KD, and he's got a 1.16 in search, so he definitely deserves a mention as well. Can't skip over him, but like I don't know, their team seems to be a mess. It seems like it's hard to rank anybody in Florida in there. Big Wake would have made our list if we had definitive positions, but he'd
Yeah.
really be the only one.
Florida's so weird.
Their KDs are like they look fantastic.
Oh yeah, their
Uh,
individual stat, like Vivid even too.
Well, Vivid is a 0.91, but that's like such a lie because if you look, he's like number one in engagements in every game mode, and like
Mhm.
he has a 0.91, but he's doing a ton on the map for his team. That's about the best 0.91 a player's ever had because he's number one in engagements, like up there in first bloods. Like he's doing what he needs to do. But I've got Dashy at number one. He's the number two AR and KD at a 1.08. He's really stepped it up in search and destroy, and we've been hearing he's been doing a lot of work for this team, helping them come up with search and destroy stats. So I don't have too much else to say here, but hard to argue against Dashy being towards the top of your list, if not one or two. I should have just put Zero at one, just to gas him up, just like I did with Afro. But you know, I've got Dashy at number one.
Yeah, I think his numbers have been really impressive. Obviously, OpTic winning three straight matches can really convincingly 3-0, 3-0, 3-1. I don't know. I'm kind of I'm cautiously optimistic about the whole Dashy thing at AR. Um, Maybe I'm still kind of riding that like you know the community speculation on him like really being the AR that is going to work in Cold War, or sorry, not in Cold War, in Vanguard. Geez, I'm getting all mixed up. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. But then again, the whole nature of Vanguard might play into Dashy's hand because he's able to take more gunfights and not really.
Yeah, just ego
He doesn't.
chow.
Yeah, he doesn't have to be a traditional like lane holder 100% of the time. Um, Given
Hmm.
I don't know. So, um, yeah, I'll throw him some gas and say that he's the number one AR for me right now.
Yeah, I like it. I feel like our lists were overall like pretty similar compared to like this is definitely the time where they're probably gonna be the least similar, because you're really still settling in players. But as we do this, we might do this maybe pre every major or something coming up here. So it may be something that we'll see. We'll see how it changes. But I think it was a pretty fun segment. We have maybe a more wide scale player segment coming up in the middle of the year that we're kind of planning out. What the schedule looks like going forward, though, obviously no matches this weekend. Next week's podcast is going to be pretty much fully dedicated to maybe any news we might see or something, but it's going to be mostly fully dedicated to the major one predictions. And really, really, really excited to get into that. Obviously, like predictions are some of our favorite videos to do. Um, we've been going for a while. I don't really have anything for Down Bad Sports One of the Week unless you do.
There's a lot of crap. I don't know. I'm not too passionate about Michigan basketball, but a big
Yeah,
blow up
getting destroyed
yesterday.
by my Badgers.
A big blow up yesterday with Juwan Howard, head coach, getting in a physical altercation. He instigated it. He was 100% in the wrong. I don't buy the Michigan faithful trying to defend him, being like, oh, he's a victim of you know, getting, Greg Gard was physical with him in the handshake line or something. Just like stop it. Like just put your hand up and admit that you were wrong. I mean, all this could have been avoided if he had just been the bigger man and came out and been like, I totally effed up, and uh, I owe an apology to the entire Wisconsin Badgers. But
My boys,
Wisconsin,
the Badgers.
yeah, the Badgers are a rowdy bunch in their
Johnny
own right.
Davis is amazing. I love
Yeah,
that guy.
they always have some guy that's the next guy. A few years ago it was Bronson Koenig, and then it was
Yeah, they never have like the
Brad
individual
Davison,
talent, but they
and
find a way
then
to be like a top 15 team that makes that Elite Eight. And
Frank Kaminsky and Sam. I mean, when are these guys? Who's
heartbreaker
gonna?
team.
Yeah, these guys are gonna start paying off. Hopefully for them. I don't know.
That
I'm never gonna hear the end of it if they do from my Wisconsin brethren. But yeah, that's. I mean, I don't know. I'm not really too down bad about that. Olympics are over. A little bit bittersweet on that. I don't know. I've always kind of been an Olympic diehard, and for me it serves almost like a spot check in time or something. It's like, what happened the last time the Olympics were on? Like, what was the world like
yeah,
then? And
yeah.
it's just kind of like I don't know, like a periodical look back in history. It's like, wow, like 2018, the South Korean Pyeongchang Olympics. It's like that was all pre-pandemic. There was a lot, just weird stuff. Obviously, it's always fun to watch, sports on at odd hours of the night, and obviously, Winter Olympics offers a lot of weird sports that you don't get to see in the U.S., like cross country skiing and figure skating and speed skating and people jumping down the mountain on skis and stuff. It's just crazy stuff that you don't see in America. So kind of fun. Yeah, so I don't know. That's my little sports blurb of the week. I could go on, but go ahead and let people get on out of here.
Yeah, I actually kind of have a moment now that I'll touch on for about 2 seconds that you
Yeah.
brought up from the past. You brought up that the only team that ever made me care about college basketball, Frank Kaminsky and Sam Decker. I was absolutely down bad when they lost in the Final Four, and then the next year when they lost in the title game because Grayson Allen, who I'm now a
He's on
fan
your
of on the
Milwaukee
Bucks,
Bucks.
yeah, who's the team that I actually really care about in basketball. When he destroyed us in the national championship, that Badgers team that took out the undefeated Kentucky team, the 38-0 team,
Don
38-1.
Calipari.
Yeah, they took out that supposed juggernaut with some random dude named Frank Kaminsky, who was like the best player in the country undoubtedly that year. That was the one team that ever made me care about college basketball. So I'm down bad thinking about them losing that game in the national title against Duke and Grayson Allen, but we can move on. I also just saw my phone lit up and it was my cousin texting me. The odds for the major came out, the COD major, and Paris is 501 to 1 odds, and he said he's dropping $1,000 on Paris to win it. And I said you might as well just throw $1,000 down the sewer. Because I get that it's 501 to 1 odds, but Paris is not winning a match. So odds are out. Paris is 501 to 1 odds. Maybe we'll get Kyle to drop some money on them because it's such a good payout. We know how much he loves Paris. But
Okay, if one of these like online betting things was giving me a free bet on Paris, I wouldn't even make that.
yeah, I mean, I saw one of the odds
It
in there.
wouldn't be
LAG
worth.
was like 30 something to 1. That's a little interesting. But Paris at 501, I feel like I need longer odds to be able to bet on them. I don't know though, but maybe we'll make you make a bet because we know how much you love Paris. They seem to be like the team you always want to talk about. We have to get you to stop talking about them at some points.
God, I can't even be bothered to even remember who's on their team.
All right, you ready to wrap this one up?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, that's gonna do it for this one. Pretty long episode. We're pretty much approaching 2 hours right now. Hopefully, a little audio bug in the middle didn't bother you. We had a little cutoff there because our system crashed. Middle of Kyle talking about the Ravens, but that's going to do it for this one. Like I said, next week we're coming at you with the predictions for Major 1. That's pretty much going to be the whole episode unless maybe some more news pops up. We're just going to spend most of the time discussing that. The Major, figure out a way to do our predictions because obviously with 2 of us, if we split a decision, it's going to be a little interesting to make the bracket for like a combined podcast bracket, but we'll discuss that this week, figure it out. If you guys are on YouTube, we'd really appreciate it if you dropped a like, comment, and subscribe. Obviously, we're approaching 400 subs. kind of a pretty big milestone. So that'd be awesome if we could hit that sometime soon. So if you guys are watching and are not subscribed and you enjoy the podcast, we'd really appreciate it if you drop a sub. If you're on the audio platforms, obviously we appreciate you listening and dropping a review if you can. That's going to do it for this one. Really excited to get into predictions next week. So I hope you guys will join us for that. And we will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, everyone.